So what's up? It's your boy Sean P back again with another edition of Hip Hop Roundtable Reviews. So tonight it's gonna be somewhat of a hip hop state of hip hop commentary piece. I'm gonna do a reaction video on. Young Thug came out recently and made statements saying that rap is in a weird place right now. And off of that, he said a lot of other statements off of that, basically blaming the beef with Drake and Kendrick, indirectly blaming Kendrick Lamar, and the state of hip hop right now really being affected. You know what I mean? And basically what he's alluding to is why a lot of the artists aren't selling what they used to now. 21 Savage recently just had his first week in hip hop from his last album he just put out. And he only sold 53,000 in the first week. Now, this is an artist that is a staple mainstream artist in the trap scene, 21 Savage. I would say he's a certified rap star in today's game. And he really should be selling close to 100,000. Easy. But he's selling literally half of that in the first week. And first week sales are a good indicator of the magnitude of how hot you are and the product you're going to put out. So with that being said, hip hop is going through a drought right now, a mainstream drought, I say. I don't think it's going through a creative drought, but a mainstream drought. And I think that's a lot of the statements that Young Thug is alluding to. So what we're going to do, we're going to show you this video. It's from courtesy of Rob Markman. Really good on hip hop commentary. Shout out Rob Markman. Definitely check his channel out. And we're going to go through the talking points and really see, Young Thug's case as to why hip hop is in a quote weird space. So let me do what I do and pull that up. Share screen. All right. Okay, let's go.
He was part of a live stream where he said rap is in a weird space, and he cited the Kendrick Drake beef as a reason. He isn't the first person to say that. And he also said he will be so happy if hip hop turned pop. I have thoughts. But first,
that's a bold statement right there. And I really want to know and him to elaborate about him saying hip hop turned pop. I mean, Drake, obviously, arguably the biggest pop star in the world, one of, is a pop star / rap star. So what does he mean? Like, hip hop has been pop for the last 15 to 20 years. It's only now it's going through a drought. So I really want to understand what he means by that, by hip hop needs to turn pop. That in itself is a weird space statement. I'll just say that.
First, I need y'all to subscribe. Yo, we got to get to 50,000 before the end of the year. Like, I got to get to 50,000 for the end of the year. So please, if you like my content, if you watched a couple of these videos and you find yourself that you keep coming back, go ahead and subscribe. Please consider subscribing. Put your alerts on.
And definitely check out Rob Markman's page. He's got a lot of great hip hop commentary. He does hip hop reviews as well. So definitely check his page out, get his views up. He's definitely a real one in the hip hop media space. So definitely check him out.
Like, comment, share, hit the hype button, all of that. And I love y'all for the support. All right, let's get to 50,000. No reason why I can't get to 50,000 right here. We in the 9th inning in December. I want to get to 50,000 for the end of the year. All right. For my birthday. My birthday is December 30th. So, man, that'll be an amazing birthday gift to me, man. Get me to 50,000. We're right there. So let's do it. Okay. I'm going to try to throw the video in here, right? Y'all know how YouTube acts. I'm going to try to throw the video in here so you can see for yourself. If you don't see the cut to this video, just know that it got sniped, and then I'm going to recap and tell you what he said. But here we go.
I feel like I always wanted to do this type of music, and then I feel like rap is in like a weird like space right now, because it's just saying like everybody beefing, and then it's just like two of some of the biggest, two of the biggest artists in the world, like Clash, and a lot of like the fucking ripple effect that came out. Weird. I feel like it's time. I feel like we gotta like take it to the next level. We gotta.
All right, I want to stop his comments there. So he's alluding to basically saying the Drake and Kendrick beef put hip hop in a weird space. Now, I already did a video on this topic. Definitely go check that out. If the Drake and Kendrick beef caused, hip hop to, be in somewhat of a drought. And he's saying, right after that, he says, we need to take it to the next level. And I'm trying to parse through what he really means by that. Now, there are a couple of ways to take that. See, I think the battle put hip hop in a reset mode. But to be honest with you, I think hip hop needed this. Hip hop needed a cleansing, if you will, because Young Thug is part of the trap wave, whether you want to call it mumble rap, whether you want to call it turn up music, trap, whatever. That's his wave. The way I look at it is, and it was already going downhill before, that style of mainstream hip hop is getting played out. You know what I mean? And it is played out. People don't want to hear that shit no more. You know what I mean? I think him going out and saying, oh, well, it's in a weird space, you know what I mean? It's kind of almost alluding to, it's kind of almost complaining like, oh, people aren't liking the shit we used to put out, pre-beef. You know what I mean? And let's be honest, the beef affected Drake. Drake's afraid to put out an album. He's afraid to put out his album. And the reason why he's afraid to put it out is because a lot of the music on there is the same shit Drake's been putting out for 3 years, and people have been getting tired of that style. I said on All for the Dogs, Drake was falling off, So, but then he goes and he says, oh, well, we need to step our game up. So he's kind of admitting, or take it to the next level, he's kind of admitting that we need to do better and do something more creative. You know what I mean? And see, this is my whole thing about that. Just come out and say, it's like, look, you're afraid to be creative. Now people want something different. You know what I mean? You can't just go on the same, put it on, coast mode and just put out the same album over and over again. I think the trap wave is over, and yes, I do think Kendrick ended that. Kendrick basically exposed Drake, and people don't want to hear that style anymore. And him and his Atlanta rappers, as I'll cite 21 Savage only selling, just slightly over 50K the first week. They don't hit no more. They don't hit like they used to. So, like Young Thug is saying, they need to take things to the next level, and they need to do it by being more creative and being better artists. I mean, just be better. I mean, I don't see what's so hard about that. I'm gonna speak more on that in a little bit, but let's go on and see what Young Thug.
Level up, like AI, it's just so much. Everything in the world leveling up except hip hop. Like niggas getting like worse. Like we getting worse than when we first started. I think we like reached something just like comfortability. Even when we feel like we like hustling hard as we can, we still like it's still cap. We so comfortable. I feel like we need this type of shit. I would be so happy if hip hop.
Allow me to parse through, but I think he's actually taking some accountability for what he's saying right there. He said something about AI in there. AI's got nothing to fuck to do with that. But I think he's actually taking ownership of the fact a little bit that, you know, they need to do some better things and some new things out there. And if he's going that route, I actually agree with him. You know what I mean? I think the problem is, it's like, yo, your sound is played, bro. And hip hop goes through a change every 7 years. Your sound is played. Be better artists. Come with a different style, a different wave, and grow as an artist. Be creative. You know what I mean? That's what makes the greats greats. You know what I mean? You can't just stay in one zone your entire career and expect to be one of the GOATs of all time. People call this man Young Thug a GOAT. I think Young Thug is one of the most overrated rappers of all time. He's one of my top 5 overrated rappers of all time. He was lucky to jump on that Atlanta trap wave that Future started, if you want to call it mumble rap or whatever. And he rode that. He rode a lot of the Drake movement, a lot of the Drake smoke in the 2010s into the 2020s. But you know, since he came out of jail, he could barely sell 40,000 in 1 week. And that's because his sound is played. Like Little Baby, another one, he's played. His whole you know, era of rapper, that Atlanta sound is played out. And unless you could really rap, really be creative, and be a great song maker, you're not going to survive, because you got to be able to reinvent yourself. So I think he's taking a little bit of ownership. If I could hear a little bit of what he's saying there.
Turn into pop. Like, nobody on this earth can fuck with me when it comes to that type of shit. You know, I hope he happy. But I also love hip hop, because I know a lot of hip hop artists can't do that.
Well, you can rap your ass off. We always do that. But hip hop also always looks to you to push boundaries every project, something different. It's a risk. You can stay comfortable. You can do the same thing. You love that. But
Okay, so let me recap.
Okay, so if you hear the dude that he's talking to right there, he's pushing back, and he's basically saying, you know what, you can't stay comfortable. You got to start pushing boundaries. You know what I mean? And in a way, I think Young Thug is kind of agreeing with him on that. Now, the whole pop statement, I wish hip hop would become pop, I don't understand that, because hip hop has been dominating the pop music field, I would say probably up until about 2022, a little bit past post-COVID. And I'd probably say from the mid 2000, maybe early 2010s. I'd probably say from like about 2013 to about 2021. I think majority of hip hop dominated the pop charts. Reese actually brought up a good point. He said pop music really isn't a genre, quote unquote. Pop music is a collection of various genres, whether it's country, whether it's R&B, whether it's, you know, radio boy band music, K-pop, hip hop, reggaeton, and they make it pop. When you listen to a pop radio station, they play everything. They play hip hop, they play trap, they play country, they play R&B, they'll play Beyonce or whatever. They'll play all of that. So to me, I look at it like hip hop has to make the pop music. And if hip hop is strong enough and you have enough creative artists that push boundaries, like that young gentleman was saying in there, you know what I mean? You're going to get that. You're going to go and have more pop stars like you did in the early 2010s. Kendrick Lamar became a pop star. J. Cole became a pop star. Drake was one of the biggest pop stars. So you make what pop is. I don't understand what he means by I wish hip hop will become pop again, because I guess maybe he's saying well, I wish it was more like pop and we would all work with each other and not have it be competitive. Because the one thing about pop stars, if you make it big, they all work together and they all write for each other too. Like I remember back in the 2000s when Alicia Keys and Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera were all pop stars, Beyonce, they'd write songs for each other. Like Alicia Keys wrote songs for Christina Aguilera. You know what I mean? So maybe that's what he means, but I kind of don't understand the context of that. But let's get back to what Rob has to say about it.
Just in short, right? He said, I feel like I always wanted to do this type of music. And then I feel like rap is in a weird space right now because it just seems like everybody's beefing. Two of the biggest artists in the world clash, and a lot of fucking ripple effect came out after that. Weird. I feel like it's time. I feel like we got to take it to the next level. We got to level up. Like AI is just so much. Everything in the world leveling up except hip hop. He also said, I feel like we need this type of shit. Right. And then he said that he loved hip hop and said, I would be so happy if hip hop turned to pop. Right now.
Well, if he's saying it like that, I actually agree with what he's saying. He said we need to level up. Like, and I agree with Young Thug. If he's taking that stance, I agree. They need the next one. They need somebody who has a new creative wave that's going to take things over. I think Young Thug, he needs to try something different. He needs to come with another approach. And from what I understand, he's a talented songwriter, and I hear he actually could rap a little bit, rap a little bit. He should go more in that direction. I mean, I think people like a Young Thug is afraid to take a risk. You know what I mean? And you can't be afraid to take a risk if you want to be great. You got to do something that, like they were saying, pushes the envelope. And that's why Jay-Z became Jay-Z. That's the reason why Nas is Nas. That's the reason why Kanye, who was the king of pushing the envelope, is Kanye. And you got to be able to do that.
I want to unpack this, but first I'm going to admit this, right? And first we have to admit this. I don't know what stream this was on. I just saw this floating around the internet, and I don't know the full context, right? What was he asked? What kind of set that question off? What was he asked? When he, there's only like a 1 minute clip, and when he says, "I always feel like I wanted to do this type of music," what type of music is he talking about? I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, that is a good point. Maybe he's talking about I want to really rap. You know what I mean? Or I want to do more, conventional rap or what have you. But if that was the context of the question, what's stopping you? You know what I mean? Why are you afraid? And it's like, in the end of the day, bro, it's like you're selling 40,000 in 1 week doing what you used to do. Why not take a risk and try something different? Like somebody like Designer, right? Designer turned into a traditional East Coast hip hop artist. He was responsible for the song Panda. You know what I mean? Where the dude, for all intents and purposes, was like Kanye's new version of Future, 10 years ago, right? Now the dude came back and he's rapping conventional bars. He's rapping over good sample production. He sounds good. No, there's nothing wrong with that, yo. You know what I mean? People want to hear change and want to hear a creative difference for you to grow as an artist.
But now on to some of these comments. Like, we've been talking about Kendrick versus Drake and how this is the biggest battle that hip hop has ever seen. That's my opinion, but I don't feel like it's an opinion. I feel like it's something that we all could agree on. This is the biggest battle that hip hop's ever seen. I mean, we're over a year past it, and it is absolutely having and going to continue to have ripple effects. That's a fact. Thug is right in that regard. So is hip hop in a weird space, right? Is that the question? I wouldn't use that word weird. I would use, not to nitpick on the word. I kind of hate, because sometimes you could get what people are saying. It annoys me when it's like, I understand what you were saying. I didn't like that word that you.
Yeah, and I agree with him. I would say hip hop is going through a reset right now, because I think the battle, like Kendrick said, and Let the Party Die, I think the trap turn up party, for all intents and purposes, that's over. that doesn't mean you can't still make that music. You could still make that music, and people like Future, he's gonna make that kind of music or whatever. But you got to do something different, man. You just got to come with a different type of style. You got to grow off of that. Do another offshoot of that. You know what I mean? Incorporate something else, different sounds, different samples. You know what I mean? So I don't think by all means hip hop is dead. I don't think that, and I don't think it's in a weird space. It's just in a space where Young Thug, and he kind of alluded to it, you can't be comfortable no more. You got to do something different and push the envelope. That's all it is.
But I understand the spirit of what you're saying. A lot of times I like to look to the spirit of what people were saying and give people the benefit of the doubt in that way. So it's hip hop in a weird space. I wouldn't use that word. I would say hip hop is in the transitional space, but that's splitting hairs, right?
That's exactly.
But that word weird,
reset, transitional.
It's interesting that he used the word weird, because one of the weirdest things this year for me, as a fan, was the cover to You Scuddy, where Thug went whiteface on his cover.
That's true.
And on the intro on the song Ninja, where he used the N-word repeatedly and went with the hard ER with it. And then the product.
Now I didn't hear this Young Thug album yet, but I do think that the album cover drew a lot of eyes to it by him bleaching his skin on there. And I didn't hear Young Thug's album. Maybe I might listen to it just on a flyby. I got a lot of albums to catch up to review for my end of the year list that's coming up. Stay tuned for that. But see, that album cover, believe it or not, is kind of fire. And if he had a concept off of that cover, you know what I mean? Like, what if they looked at me as a white guy? Or what if I was a white rapper? Or what if I was light skinned? Because Young Thug, he's brown skinned or what have you. You know, would things be different? You know, and had a conceptual song off of that. That would be fire. That's creativity right there. And that's provocative. That pushes the envelope because it makes people question things. It makes people create conversations. But if he just did that just to draw eyes on it and and just put out the regular music you usually would, then it's like, all right, well, why did you do that? You're just looking for some clout. That's all that is.
To that, because of the world we live in, we start seeing all these white streamers just rocking out. Like, yeah, oh man, he's killing it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just the optics of that, the feeling of that was like, that don't feel so. That feels weird. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, this feels weird. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's funny he used the word weird because
so You Scuddy, I gotta go listen to that song, man. So basically, it was a play off of, like, white culture. You know what I mean? And that's a little bit uncomfortable with a black man using that type of, ER terminology. But if he did something like that, that would be interesting. Like, I actually got to listen to this song now. I actually got to listen to it to see what context he was doing and why he was trying to make a song like that.
One of the weirder things to happen in hip hop this year was the You Scuddy album. Thug talks about we got to take it to the next level and we got to level up. And I agree with him. There. And to his credit, he says the word we. So I'm going to assume he also means himself. I hope there's some accountability here because he's one of the leaders. He's one of the biggest artists in the genre. He's one of the ones that other artists follow for sure. So I hope when he says we, he also means himself. And it sounds like he did. But, like You Scuddy, like, where do we go from here, right? But You Scuddy was one of the biggest letdowns of the year. And we talked about it when it dropped. Thug, after coming out of the YSL trial, a trial like we have never seen before, just weird twists and turns, ups and downs. The album could have been a transitional moment for Thug, could have been a level up for Thug. He could have gave us stories and feelings and growth and perspective that we hadn't heard before. I kind of likened it to the opportunity, the moment was when T.I. was going through his legal drama, and then he came out and gave us Paper Trail, which was a phenomenal album.
I want to stop this right there. I mean, his words right there are gold. That's exactly what Young Thug, the move he should have made. Because, see, the thing about Thug is, like, when artists get emotional and really talk about like the trauma and what they've gone through, the reality rap, emo rap, people feel that, people relate, people want to hear your story, bro. You know what I mean? I think one of the best albums of all time, and people don't agree with me on this, maybe one of my second favorite Eminem album is Recovery. Why was Recovery so good? Was because Eminem went through his whole battle with addiction. You know what I mean? How down he was. You know what I mean? How his life was just led to shit. And people related to that. Like, I was going through, long story short, I was going through a personal issues in that time of my life when Recovery dropped. And Recovery was kind of like my therapy. Like, Recovery really made me understand that, look, people are down just like you are. You know what I mean? And if Young Thug, circle back to Young Thug, like, if you talked about your experiences in jail and how you were wrongfully accused and all that, like, people want to hear that. You know, like, don't just do the same redundant Turn Up album. You know what I mean? People want to hear your pain. Like, and I think that, like, just like Rob is saying, that was a missed opportunity to make a transitional album, to be a deeper artist. So I totally agree with Rob on that. I tell you what, Rob, that was gold right there. I give you props for that statement.
There's Thug went through something that most of us would never go through. Couldn't even fathom going through what Thug went through. Some of it his own doing, some of it him being a target, some of it, we heard the leak call. So some of it is damn, man, you was really out here, just speaking on everything. But then some of it is also, well, shit, you never been locked up and in that situation and facing that time, and you might not be in your right mind. Like, there's so much perspective and back and forth and stuff that he could have given us in the story, that he could have told us from a perspective that not many have before and not many could. It's a story that Drake can't tell with his music because he's never been through something like that. It's a story that Kendrick can't tell with his music because he hasn't been through that. It's a story that Cole can't tell with his music because he hasn't been through that.
Missed opportunity, man. I mean, I was told missed opportunity to personalize his rap style, and maybe it would have been a darker album. Maybe it would have been an album that might have been a risk, and some of his core fan base would be like, "Oh nah, well, we want to turn up. Like, what's this? Where the bops at?" But I mean, if people paid attention to it, you know what I mean? That's growth into another era of your music. That to me is, quote unquote, like you say, leveling up, in my opinion. And maybe at first people wouldn't warm up to it, but after a while, people will give it a chance. He has a very big following. He has a big fan base. They're going to get behind you and support you on that.
Chance to rap it. Like, you can name it. Like, there's a handful of rappers who could do that. T.I. was in the position to do that many years ago. Shine was in the position to do that many years ago. It didn't quite work out post-prison release for Shine. Max B may be in a position to do that. We don't know how that's going to go. But, it's just a perspective that you can't get from anybody, and Thug was in prime position to give us something. And he did it. And I feel like it was a fumble. The hints of it on the album, Catch Me I'm Falling, Blame Jesus, Miss My Dogs. like he was going there. I feel like those type of songs should have been fleshed out more, heightened, figured out how to turn those emotions into the best possible songs that they can be. Instead, we were trolled. The Whiteface album cover was a troll.
And just like I said, that's a total, it's a troll. I say it's more of a clout chase because it's like, come look at me in my album cover. And I think people will listen to it. But if you're a fan who doesn't listen to Young Thug like that, like I consider myself, I'm not a Young Thug fan. So one day I might just go and say, oh, why you got a white face on his album? What's that about? You know, I would go and see what it's about. But if it was the same, you know, stuff he was doing before, I'd be like, what the fuck? Why did he put a white face on the album for? You know what I mean? If he's not going to do something and build off of that, you know what I mean? And I would have just skipped it and be like, this was a waste of time because he's putting out the stuff that I didn't like and didn't listen to him from before. So, I mean, he's totally right on that one.
Right? The Ninja song was a troll. And it's funny when the album dropped, those are the things that dominated the conversation because the music didn't carry. The music didn't carry.
Dead right about that.
You know, I enjoyed his Big Bank interview. I talked about that, did a video about that because it seemed rooted in real conversation and bringing perspective. That's the name of Big Bank's podcast and understanding. And so Thug is there capable of it because he had the conversation. And it's like, okay, how do you have that conversation in music form? So how do we level up hip hop? To me, in my opinion, it's with intention. It's with treating the fans and listeners with more respect. Like, hey, I don't have to troll to get your attention. I could give you something genuine and pure and really impactful and have these real important conversations.
Yeah, and I want to build off of that. I totally agree with Rob on that statement because I think when you get the true emotion, true reality hip hop, you know, people telling their story, as opposed to this one hit wonder, you know, chasing a TikTok clout dance, you know, attention, look at me type of era, people would take it serious. I think hip hop has gotten to a point where it's basically a walking Instagram post. You know what I mean? It's walking eye candy. Like, look at this. Look, I got this bop that, you know, everybody else got. Check this out. And there's a new cool dance to this. But after like maybe a month, people are like, all right, what else or whatever. You know what I mean? I think, see, and this thing, I'll go back to the beef, right? I'll go back to Kendrick versus Drake. The reason why that changed hip hop was because it was a moment. It was a moment where the two best in the game were going back and forth, and they were going back and forth with quality songs. They were well-written, well-done songs. Even Family Matters was a dope song. Like, Drake did his thing. The Heart 6 was all over the place, but it was a song where Drake told his feelings. He told his emotions. You know what I mean? And if Drake went back to that Drake, you know, went back to being more emotional, telling people how they felt, how he really felt in, I mean, circa, you know, Iceman. Like, take a look at Iceman. If he made Iceman an emotional album, similar to what he came in the game on, from Thank Me Later to Take Care in that mode, people would come back to Drake, you know? But he's afraid to put the album out. And the reason why he's afraid to put the album out is because he's going by the same played out formula and these look at me TikTok bops. You know, people need to get out of that mode. I mean, that's bringing hip hop down and it's boring mainstream rap listeners.
Conversations with you and with music, or share these real emotions with you through music in the best way possible. And fuck the distractions. I think that's how we level up in hip hop. It's with intention. Intention is the key word here. He also said we're getting worse. He said that in the video, we're getting worse, as in hip hop getting worse. And then we're also going to get to his I would be so happy if hip hop turned into pop. He says, nobody on this earth can fuck with me when it comes to that type of shit. I would be happy, but I also love hip hop. And then, I put my Drewski, like my meme face on. Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Truly a question. Like, what do you mean by that? Truly, like, if I sat with him, I would ask him to expand on that. Because I would be so happy if hip hop turned into pop. If you mean more popular, as in pop, more popular, okay, I get it. And this whole talk about hip hop and the Billboard and the top 40, and we talked about that too. I did a whole video on that too.
Mm-hmm.
If you mean popular, okay, I understand popularity. If you mean pop music, like if hip hop turned into pop music, like pop music as a genre, even though to me pop music is a made up genre. I mean, all genres are made up, but pop.
Exactly what we said earlier. How pop is really a collection of a whole bunch of other genres, but that's truth.
The music is like really like a Frankenstein genre, right? But if you mean pop music as a genre, now I want hip hop to be successful. I absolutely do. But pop music to me is just watered down, palatable versions of other genre for the masses.
Exactly what we said.
And typically when we speak about it, the white masses for white people, you know what I'm saying? When you think about huge pop stars of like,
that's a good point. Pop is hip hop for white people. I think pop is radio friendly, catchy versions of hip hop, or hip hop that catches on to people who are casual listeners. I'll go and say that. I'm not going to say it's a white genre so much, or it's for white audiences so much more, because hip hop is global now. I mean, you have people in Africa, you have people in India, you have Latinos listening to hip hop now. It's so globalized. You can't just say, "Oh well, it's commercial. It's for white people." You could say that maybe 30 years ago, but hip hop is so global now, and it's so diverse. It's not palatable for one demographic. It's made palatable for people who are casual listeners and not really into the culture of hip hop. That's what pop music really is.
Like the TRL era, because that's just where my mind goes, right? When I think pop for me, and everybody has a different point of reference. Obviously, that pop has spanned generations and generations, but I think of the Britney Spears, the NSYNC, the Backstreet Boys, like that movement. And even then, and credit to those artists. Those artists made great, exciting music for.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, Weeknd is quote pop music. You know what I mean? And I think he's arguably the greatest artist in the world right now. He's a little bit on the dark side. You know what I mean? But I mean, look at the guys following. He's a monster out there. So I don't know. I mean, I dabble in pop music here and there. I heard some of Sabrina Carpenter's music the other day. She's not bad. She got a couple of nice songs. You know what I mean? She's the new age, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera. I don't know. She's not Taylor Swift, but she's in that mold of pop star. But whatever floats your boat, she's okay. You know what I mean? She's got some songs here and there.
That time, it worked. It absolutely worked. But it was just more palatable, whiter versions of R&B. If we're being truthful, the boy band concept, so much of it is built off of what the Jackson 5 were doing. And of course,
that is true. The boy band concept was based off, Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson and other black artists. However, NSYNC did produce Justin Timberlake, who I think is a phenomenal artist and one of the great artists of all time. You know what I mean? I don't think the Backstreet Boys didn't even have that many great pop solo artists come out of it, but they were all built off of the Jackson 5 Michael Jackson model. You know what I mean? And a lot of the R&B stars, like Usher, was a pop star. You know what I mean? And Usher was kind of built out of that Michael Jackson mold. You know what I mean? So pop music has its ups and downs, I'll say, but I mean, it is a catchy radio friendly version of hip hop and R&B. I'll say that.
And then from Jackson 5, we get like New Edition. You know what I'm saying? At the New Edition, you get like New Kids on the Block. And I'm skipping a lot. There's a lot of other groups in that boy band story, and Jackson 5 were obviously inspired by what came before them as well. I'm just giving a broad overview, you know what I'm saying? But it stems from Black music. It does. And when we talk about pop, a lot of times it's labels, it's radio. It's okay. How do we take this and make it more palatable, make it more ready for the masses? Make it a little less Black in a lot of situations, and there's Black pop artists too. I'm not saying that, a little less in a lot of situations, not in every case, in a lot of situations, right? That to me,
I don't know about that. That's another debate for another day. That pop music is making hip hop less Black because Kendrick Lamar put out "Not Like Us," which is the biggest song of this decade, and that very much is a Black song. Euphoria is a Black song. Luther is a Black song. There's nothing quote whitewashed about that song whatsoever. So I mean, he's entitled to that opinion. That's kind of another debate for another day. I'll just say that.
That's what we're talking about when we talk about pop music. And then even when you get into the heavier dance elements in pop that became so popular, like in the 2000s, 2010s, you know, the four to the floor type style and that permeated pop for many years. Be wrong. This is where I would ask, hey, what did you mean by that? This is just my interpretation. And he may say, no, I didn't mean that. And that's valid. But what I hear when I say somebody say that they would be happy if hip hop turned pop, I hear, I would be happy if we watered this down and made it more accessible for the masses, made it more white, made the barrier for entry more comfortable for everybody. That's what I hear.
I still don't know what he means by that, making hip hop more pop. But to me, hip hop has to be, and I'm gonna stop sharing now and end it here. But what I basically think is hip hop makes pop music. I mean, Jay-Z became a pop star not because he put out, watered down versions of something. Hard Knock Life Volume 2, when he came out with a Hard Knock Life, that was a hip hop song. That was a rap record all the way, talking about growing up in the ghetto in Brooklyn. And that was Jay-Z's most pop record, for a while. You know what I mean? So that was a pop song all the way. And Jay-Z blew up off of that. And that was a hood record. You know what I mean? Now I could see what he's saying when you have like some of these rappers that are like the Post Malone people and the culture vultures out there. Even if you want to throw Drake in there, for stealing various styles, like taking the trap style and making it his, claiming his when, Future actually came out and had his movement at the same time Drake did. Migos had their movement before Drake, and Drake tried to stake their flows and styles. Like that culture vulture stuff, that's corny. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know. That's a whole nother debate for another day as to what you think making hip hop pop is. But to me, if you put out great music within your own creativity that translates to the masses, i.e. Lil Wayne, i.e. Kanye West, i.e. Jay-Z, i.e. Kendrick Lamar, you make hip hop pop. Chronic became pop music, and that was gangster of all gangster rap albums. That Chronic to me is the greatest rap album of all time. Just my honest opinion, and that was street gangster rap, and that was a pop song. That was not a pop song, but pop music. But I guess you can have your opinion on it. Anyway, Young Thug. Now that I listen to it, like I think he actually is trying to take some ownership as to we need to step our game up, but he didn't really step his game up on this project. And if Young Thug was really looking to go in another direction and be more creative, okay, maybe I'll listen. But putting a white face on the album and, you know, saying a gimmick song talking about you know, NIG, you know, ER, you know, that type of, that's not gonna cut it, man. You got to be better. You got to be better than that. But anyway, what do y'all think? You know, what do you think about Young Thug's hip hop comments? Do you think that he's basically saying hip hop needs to be better and more creative, or is he making an excuse that, you know, nobody likes his style no more? What you tell me? So definitely tell me in the comments. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Hip Hop Roundtable Reviews. We will be coming back with more reviews and more content, giving us the end of the year. Stay tuned. Our end of the year wrap-up show where we name our best artists, best albums, our biggest star that year, our biggest disappointment. That's coming up. We're going to definitely have a roundtable discussion on that one. So with that, enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll talk to y'all soon, all right? Peace.